Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, your lives are becoming more difficult as the life force of your world is draining away. Have you noticed that as everything around you seems to decline, one thing still grows? It is the power of your rulers. None of their plans and directives have solved your problems or made your life better. The only result has been their increased control over you at the cost of your freedom. Do you know why? You gave them the power. They called for your sacrifice, and you thought it was noble. They said if you worked for yourself and your family, that you were selfish and uncaring, and they made you feel ashamed. They denounced the leaders of industry as greedy exploiters. You agreed. All evil needs to win is the consent of good people. To everyone within the range of my voice, you now have a choice to make. If you decide to support the notion of sacrifice enforced by the state, your game is up. Your world is in a downward spiral, and you will ride it down to destruction. But if you share the values, if you believe that your life is a sacred possession for you to make the most of, if you want to live by the judgment of your own mind, not edicts from the state, then follow our lead. Do not support your own oppressors. Stop letting the system exploit you. Form your own communities on the frontiers of your crumbling world. Your rulers hold you by your endurance to carry the burdens they impose, by your generosity when you hear cries of despair, and above all, by your innocence which cannot grasp the depths of their evil. The world you are living in is the world they wanted. Leave them to it. Those who are eager to build a better world, a world of freedom and opportunity, a world based on mutual respect. In that world, you will not receive alms, nor pity, nor forgiveness of sins, but honor, respect, and justice. Don't let the fire go out spark by irreplaceable spark in confusion and despair. The world you desire can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It is yours.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. It's your world. Take it.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
Ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
and I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio, listener-supported radio, where no topic is taboo. And, of course, as always, we're brought to you by Revolution Radio, which is also listener-supported radio, where information never sleeps. I'd like to remind everybody to make use of the donation meters. It's that keeps us on the air and keeps us censorship-free. And y'all do a fine job, and we do appreciate it. Also, would like to mention before I get the show started that I've been having internet connection problems today, so there's a possibility that I may lose my signal and the show may get dropped. If it does, I'll do my best to get back on as soon as I get my signal back. Of course, I'll have to reestablish connection with my guest if that happens. If not, we're just going to make a go of it and do the best we can with it. So, Les, how you doing today? Well, I do have him with me, don't I? I may have lost him in the last signal break.
No, I'm here. You hear me?
Okay. Thought I lost you for a minute.
No, I had you on mute. I apologize. And thank you so much for having me back on your show. It's been a while. I think it's been once or twice before, but you were the first to bring me on your show after probably 15 years of doing this research. So now I'm into it for 20 years, and I'm still out there all alone.
Well, have you been on any other shows?
I've been on a few other shows. Yeah, I have. It's very difficult for people to absorb something as simple as communication systems that were specifically inscribed in certain artifacts that have been handed down through the millennia to humanity, and have provided essentially that common database of knowledge that we've been accumulating. Whether it be religion, I mean, the similarities in religions are far from anything, and not coincidental by any means. And there's a source and a basis for our knowledge, our database of knowledge that has explanation. How scriptures came to be.
Right.
So there we go. And that's what I've been doing. I'm nothing more than a translator of an alien language that is essentially hologram in nature, hologram codices or stories in nature.
If I remember correctly, when you first appeared on my show, and I believe I was still at Blog Talk Radio at the time, you were explaining to me then, if I remember correctly, that that reading these stones has to do with dealing with light, and I think you mentioned the term non-light. Am I correct in that?
It's a simple process that I label spectrum-specific illumination, and if you Google those words, you'll see that I'm pretty much prominent in defining that term. Essentially, if you Google the word Petrophotoglyph, which is the discovery I made in 1994 of the hologram-inscribed or photo-inscribed stones, you'll see that I am, again, Impact Optics. My research is the only resource available that documents these artifacts. despite the fact that Wikipedia, that I use extensively for, the database lookup of information, has denied the fact that these artifacts exist. I mean, I can sit here and break a window with one of them, but they'll deny the fact that it exists. So how did that window get broken by this artifact? As for the method that's used, it's spectrum-specific illumination, most prominently the inverse or the complementary, looking at it in a complementary field or complementary perspective. So if it's light, everything that light would be dark. Two colors are complementary if they cancel each other out and make black. So therein, you can see everything around you in another sphere of perception, which I have labeled, and it fits the format of a fourth dimension. In other words, a three-dimensional
sounds like
world.
You see it by contrasting.
It's a simple thing. I mean, we used to see it in negatives. For years, we would get the negatives from our Kodachrome film back with the positives, throw away the negatives. Who wanted to see that? They were only good for making more positives. But the fact of the matter is, if there's information in a negative field that you did not perceive in that positive field, or in that complement, or in a daylight versus a nighttime field, then you're missing information. And there are certain artifacts that have been inscribed with this alien technology, a hologram alien technology that was purposely disguised. For example, there's an artifact that everybody knows quite well that requires spectrum-specific illumination to perceive, and it's called the Shroud of Turin. And in fact, for many years, it was carbon dated to the 14th century, so we got to assume that that's a viable date, but they had no way of interpolating this artifact until they invented the camera, took a picture of it, and then developed, and then the negative showed the image in the cloth, in this inscribed, hologram inscribed cloth. So therein is an example of an alien inscribed artifact that similar to what I've been dealing with. The inscriptions in stone are almost identical to those inscriptions in that artifact, and another artifact that's well known that happens to be in the New World as opposed to the Turin in the Old World was called the Virgin of Guadalupe, currently held under tight security, I'm sure, in Monterrey, Mexico. It was presented a mere 40 or 50 years after Columbus discovered America, but it persuaded an entire civilization of Mesoamerican indigenous people towards another religion. So there was something there, and in that artifact, the Virgin of Guadalupe, again, there is absolute proof of a hologram inscription technology that was applied, that similar to the hologram inscription technology applied to the stones I found, called petrophotoglyphs, cannot be reproduced today by any means, by NASA, by anybody. I saw the other day three-dimensional pens that were drawing anything you want, and you take it and use it. So, but that's not this, and we don't have this technology to inscribe artifacts with this with hologram stories. That's what we got going on.
Okay. Now, why don't you tell everybody where they can find more information at on your website real quick so they can kind of go brush up on this?
Okay. In fact, I've been posting to impactoptics.com since 1995. I've had this website. No, I'd like to say 96. since '96. It's been a long time, but there were only a few million websites on the internet at the time. It was dial-up and slow, but nevertheless, I started posting to the website back then, and I've essentially provided a complete tutorial for anybody who would care to view the format that I'm going to go through today, which is the xenolinguistics class of 2015. You can get an honorary degree in xenolinguistics if you just listen to this 2-hour interview, I guess. Email me your address and I'll send you a diploma. Promise. Anyway,
I'm putting your link in the chat room right now so they can click on it and go to your site while we're talking. So anyway,
right.
Go ahead with where you're at.
Most specifically, when you go to impactoptics.com, click on the xenolinguistics menu button. You'll see it at the bottom of the home, at the index page there, and that xenolinguistics menu button will bring you to the sub-menu that provides the xenolinguistic tutorials, and we'll be working off of that. And it's going to be pretty interesting, and you're going to find that a lot of questions that you never thought somebody could explain logically and provide scientific data to back it up, those questions will be answered here. It's that simple. My problem is credibility. When you're out there and you're all alone in a field and you say, well, I've discovered an artifact that is a portal to an ancient alien intelligence, there's much allegation of I don't want to see it, cloud watching, pareidolia, and I've been through all that. But that all gets knocked to the side by the rock hard solid proof that when you set one of these artifacts down on the table and light it up, it projects image codices when you look and see and decipher those as if you looked and seen the latest movie at the theater, you understand what it's all about. You don't know what it's about beforehand. When you see it, now you understand it, and that's how it is with these things. Whether it be an indigenous individual thousands of years ago who took this artifact into a cave that was specially designed to refract and reflect light, such that it provided this information to project from this artifact, or nowadays where you can just scan a photograph of this artifact in and click with a simple graphics program to a complementary or negative field, get the same effect. Of course, it's much easier today, but it's also much less accepted because it's so obvious anybody can do it. Why they were disguised? Well, so nobody would hoard them. There's probably libraries of petrophotoglyph artifacts all over the world, and the fact of the matter is these artifacts have been, have been collected, deciphered, and passed on, called various things, shaman stones, or in fact, Zachariah Sitchin, who is my tutor on what these things are all about, indicated that they might have sat in the Great Pyramid and as the sum of knowledge, the discs, so to speak, the discs that contained all of the knowledge that was brought down from the heavens, was brought down by the Nephilim. Anyway, we're going to get into the xenolinguistic tutorials, and we'll start with Xenolinguistics 100. Anybody has any questions, just pop right in and ask.
Nobody's asked a question in chat yet, but I was thinking, have you taken these stones to anybody in academia to see if they would even look at them yet?
Oh, yes. I have it's kind of pathetic that my life at this point is a culmination of obtaining a degree from Arizona State in archaeology, and then going into a field of microelectronics, most specifically laser processing materials, and then finding an artifact, a library of artifacts that were archaeologically unique and put together like microelectronic substrates. They are overlayered, interconnecting image masks that, when lit up, project movies. You need a translation system for anything. Starting off in Xenolinguistics 101, you can see that there's no difference between a DVD disc and a petrophotoglyph. In perspective, they are both media or platform that require translation or transduction in order to be understood. The DVD disc requires the player, and a petrophotoglyph requires image spectrum-specific illumination to translate, similar to the Shroud of Turin. It requires an inverse or complementary field. I have taken these artifacts back to head of the archaeology department back when in Arizona when I first discovered them. Of course, I was well out of the field of archaeology at the time and into microelectronics, and I got zero acknowledgement or understanding. If somebody was to look at these artifacts, there would be no way they could possibly have been fabricated. And these stone artifacts called petrophotoglyphs back then or now, so therefore they are not accepted in that perspective because they're out of context. They were surface samples. I'm sure there's many more back where these were found, and I know of sections in the southwest United States where I found many more. I found most specifically, and the first collection was in the southeast, actually, or in the Midwest rather, along the Mississippi River in Missouri, not too far from Cape Girardeau. It provided me with an understanding that there was something else out there, and that something else was a logical means for the transmission of ancient knowledge throughout the millennia of humanity. So that'd be an introduction of what we're talking about. I'm going to most specifically limit what I do and what I say to two of the artifacts. One that was labeled the Genesis petroglyph, and the other, which I labeled the unicorn petroglyph, and we'll see why for obvious reasons. So moving along to question. No questions?
No questions at this point. So why don't you go ahead and get started, and we'll take it from there. Maybe a question will come up while you're explaining it.
Okay, well, we just went through Xenolinguistics 100, the introduction to Xenolinguistics, and we'll navigate now to Xenolinguistics 101, and we're getting started here. It's more fun than anybody's ever had before, I guarantee you. And the title here is The Archangels Gabriel and Michael Speak. Well, if you look through the millennia at who were the archangels, who were the emissaries who walked through the civilizations of humanity, there's a tie-in, and you will see that as we work with these petrophotoglyphs and the image structures that they project. We're going to start with the Genesis petroglyph because both there are two very prominent figures embedded and projecting from this artifact. One of them, known in ancient Sumeria, was an elder brother of the high god Anu, and his name was Enki. And for all intents and purposes, he was further defined down the road as the Archangel Michael, elder of the two brothers. He was credited with the biogenetic engineering of the Adamo, or the man, which then was further enhanced by the woman to propagate humanity. Enki was also credited with providing the genotypes for the stratum of life on Earth as we know it today, and that included the gene for domestication, which many of the animal species have been given. But the genetic structure of life as we know it today was all put together by the master scientist, as Zach Sitchin called him, Enki. And in fact, Royce has a group and a following who are the descendants of Enki. Is that not correct? I think you still do.
Now, who has this following?
You do. Don't you?
Okay, yeah, I have that Descendants of Enki group. Yeah, but I didn't know that's what you was referring to. I had trouble understanding.
That's the same player, Enki, the Archangel Michael, the senior scientist of life on Earth as we know it today. He was credited with providing humanity, one man, with the master plan to save humanity, and that individual was Zarathustra, Uptonhausen Noah. His name was Noah to those who know the Bible, and that's one of his signatures. His epitaph was a fish and a goat, and projecting from his face on the surface of the Genesis petroglyph is a prominent glyphic image of Enki with a fish flowing from his face. In his hand laying by his side, his left hand, is the image of a goat. Enki also is descending from a pyramid. The pyramid also ties into Enki, who in fact built the pyramid, or had it built, provided the instructions for it. In this particular codex prediction, he's wearing a winged suit with a strapped down helmet similar to a Chapé Mesoamerican helmet with a front-facing horn, and the detail is all there. In his left hand, extended downward again, is the image head of a goat, and in his right hand, extending outward, is the ark. And also flowing from his face, aside from a fish, is a feline, a cat, a jaguar. So that individual projecting from the stone in this position, and we'll get into the process method here in a little bit, but from this position, position one, we get the image of Enki emerging from the Great Pyramid wearing a winged suit holding the ark. And his younger brother, half-brother, born through the conjugation of his father and his father's half-sister, Namu, which, by the way, according to Zachariah Sitchin, was the architecture for priesthood, for kingship, marrying your half-sister, not your full sister, but your half-sister was the way to go. In fact, the story that Zachariah Sitchin told was when Moses walked back into Egypt with Sarah, he told her to tell everybody that she was in fact his half-sister. Zachariah Sitchin also gets into the kingship and lineage of kingship in wasps too. That also provides a clue that there might be something more to it than just mythology. So anyway, Michael or Enke's younger brother, half-brother, Enlil, was born through the royal conjugation of the high god Anu and his half-sister Namu, was given kingship over Earth. And contrary to many beliefs, Enlil was the great sociologist. He did have a master plan. He wasn't the architect of what we have today. Rather, he laid the game plan, and we developed what we have today. Enlil was the sociologist who provided language and religion and diversified those languages and religions across the globe. However, he did have a master plan to bring them back together. And I think that that time is now, I'll be honest with you. And an understanding of these artifacts and other artifacts similarly inscribed by this technology would be a gateway towards that unification of language and religion that we so desperately need now on this earth in order to survive. So with that being said, we've also known Enki as the Egyptian god Horus, who was son of Osiris. And as we get into it, you'll see, in fact, Horus develops quite well, and we get to look into his eyes, because with this technology and projecting from these stones, you get photographic images of the players who have only been described in mythology, religion, scriptures, archaeological documentation. Okay, so that's, let me see, 102. We're going to go to Xenolinguistics 102. We're getting right through the semester here.
Okay.
And Xenolinguistics 102 talks about three-dimensional hologram inscribed artifacts, alien artifacts. Okay, I put the word alien because technology today has yet to be revealed that can reproduce these artifacts. Number one on the list here, as we discussed earlier, was the Shroud of Turin, carbon dated to the 14th century. I provided under this tutorial images of the artifact taken from Wikipedia, high resolution scan that was posted on Wikipedia, and I'm using bilateral symmetry. And again, we'll get into the three criteria for interpolation that is used within my research, but bilateral symmetry is one of them. So I've eliminated the information from the one side and folded over the information from the other side. In this case, it's the right side that's folded onto the left side. The next artifact that was discovered that unified the New World towards a single persuasion of religion was the Virgin of Guadalupe, and that artifact in the year in the late 1990s was analyzed by a PhD candidate at Cornell University using the latest in photographic technology. And it was Dr. Tonzman who discovered that within the eyes of the Virgin were micro-image subcodices. Now, this is a new word again. Not only are these artifacts holograms, as in they change with light and position, but they also embellish three-dimensional structures that, as you zoom in on them, they will provide subcodices that tie into the initial image structure, the initial image hologram. In the case of the
similar to what we do with DVDs.
DVDs, Well, it's a stream of images that are inscribed, are inscribed that a laser interprets. So, this would actually be if you could zoom in on any particular picture within the realm of a DVD and get more information. Like if you were looking at somebody and you could zoom in and see that they had an extended heart rate. You could see their heart beating real fast, meaning they were, stressed or emotionally, stimulated, that type of thing, where you're actually getting more information. And within the case of the Virgin of Guadalupe, within her eyes are the images of all the individuals who were there at the time this tilma, this artifact, was presented, discovered by Juan Diego, an indigenous Mesoamerican individual in the year 1536. So what we're looking at now is...
Les, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm reading the chat room, and we got a question by Deja Vu. He wants to know what you know about Marduk and who's his daddy, and he says thanks in advance. So he wants to know if Inky or Inlos his daddy, I think.
Marduk?
Marduk.
Marduk.
M-A-R-D-U-K.
Marduk. All right, let me... when I don't know something, I Google it. M-A-R-D-U-K. Oh, Marduk. Marduk, son of... okay, gotcha. He was a son of Enki. So basically, as far as I know, he was, given the title of ruler of the underworld after he was given the progression after Enki returned. I don't know. I don't know at this point, where he ties in. I do know that if he was the Egyptian Horus, then I'm understanding it, because there are many parallels here between individuals. There are many parallels between...
I've had researchers theorize before that Marduk and Horus were the same god. So it's not an uncommon belief.
And Osiris being, the
Enki.
high god Enki, or Michael, the archangel Michael. At least I have understood, and this is my opinion of seeing these images for 20 years, is the fact that we had emissaries walk through the civilization, and it was one emissary walking through the various civilizations of humanity. Emissaries and avatars, and we're going to get into that too. You'll see the avatars, the New World, the Old World avatars. You'll see the images of, like I said, you'll see the images of the eyes of, the image of the eyes of Horus, and that could be the eyes of Marduk too, if you're looking at it from a Mesopotamian perspective rather than an Egyptian perspective. It was the same individual or entity that walked through the civilizations, scattering the religions and changing his, the way this entity, individual avatar appeared to the civilization at that time. There was a purpose to that, a divine purpose. And, I've labeled myself the righteous sufferer, okay? And I'll tell you, and we'll get into that too, why I am 21st century Job. I am not a righteous individual. I am not God's messenger, though I have God's messages. It's a thing that we'll understand as we get along here. But anyway, I thank you for the question. And yes, if you want to call, these individuals by you'll be able to see tie-ins to where we're at here. Anyway, we're getting back to, let me see, Xenolinguistics 102, where we have this artifact called the Virgin of Guadalupe, and I've posted on Wikipedia an image profile of both the characteristics of micro-image subcodices that propagate from the eyes of the Virgin, and then also the micro-image subcodices that propagate from the deck of the crescent-shaped vessel we just reviewed in the previous tutorial that was being held by Enke. And we're going to see how that ties into the whole message and provides information further than just looking at the basic projection from the stone. These micro-image subcodices give an extensive amount of further information. Anyway, the third artifact profiled in this tutorial, Xenolinguistics 102, is in fact the Petrophotoglyph, discovered in 1994, and also projecting micro-image subcodices. And we see here the development of the major prominent glyphic figure with his symbol, the ark, and I've eliminated background data in order to isolate the image. The background data that was eliminated does tie in very extensively with this image structure, but identifying a primary player in each codex that propagates from these artifacts is necessary. And to keep that in mind as these images project allows you to then basically just list in a descriptive manner what you are seeing, and as you do that, you are writing mythology and scripture, and we'll see how that goes as we go along here. From the deck of the ark, we got micro-image subcodices, and again, these are in a complementary or spectrum specific field of perspective. We are looking at we could see an interface between the primates and man. We can see interface between a giraffe and man, and we see, in fact, the interface or the fabrication of figures that resemble human man and human woman on the deck of the ark.
Les, we got Sky in the chat room, wants to know if you're of a Christian belief.
I am now.
I like the way you put that.
I might not have been, but I was born to one religious faith, but I am definitely a believer in Jesus walked on this earth, and I believe Jesus walked in the New World too. And I'll show you a codex that very specifically identifies that fact. In fact, as we get along in the next tutorial, as a matter of fact. Xenolinguistics 103, we're ready for that one. And in Xenolinguistics 103, we actually get into transcribing mythology and scripture from these alien message portals. I'm going to use Petrophotoglyphs because this is my research. I can only identify other artifacts similarly inscribed, like the shroud and the tilma, but I can't really identify the propagated image structures without having more detailed research in photographs of the artifacts. Working directly from the artifacts doesn't really do me any good with the technology that we have today. It's better to scan a photograph in and then work with it from that perspective, unless you're a master photographer and you can set up your lighting as such. I've done that a little bit, but not real good with that. In Xenolinguistics 103, we start in by talking about an ancient tale of the righteous sufferer. Okay, the tale of the righteous one. Sufferer. That doesn't mean he was the righteous one. He just suffered. And the reason is he believed in something. I mean, he was a wealthy man, and then he became a poor man. He had it all, and then he had nothing. He was healthy, and then he was unhealthy, and all of this was caused by a test of good and evil, and you can carry that down through religion and mythology to current times. Anyway, as time passed, that ancient tale inscribed in cuneiform and deciphered from archaeological finds in Mesopotamia was translated into the Bible as the Book of Job. It's in the Old Testament. It's most likely the oldest story in the Bible, and it tells of the righteous sufferer who was tested for his belief in something, and that something was good. It was the Enlil, and understanding who Enlil was, who Yahweh was, who Allah was. We understand all of that through our religion, but understanding how that got translated into religion is what we're going to see here, and it's rock hard and solid. Essentially, we're opening a communications portal by lighting up the unicorn petroglyph here, which provides a means of driving the divine point across. And it could be to humanity of 10,000 years ago, and it could be to humanity of 2015. It doesn't matter. You light up this stone correctly, and you get the same image of a creature, which, if you list in the projection, you list the descriptive elements of the projection coming from this stone, you are essentially identifying and writing and transcribing mythology and scripture. I'm going to go from the scriptural perspective because it's quite extensive. If you start with the Book of Job, at the end where the communications portal to Job is opened up, delivering Job the understanding of what he's been going through, why he's been doing this, and why he's been so faithful. This communications portal is manifest as a creature. Starts in Job 39. King James Version is the version I'm going to use here. It's the most analogous one to the projections and the descriptions from the projection of stone. And this creature has a single swirled horn. It's identified as the unicorn, but it's not just happily prancing around as we would maybe like to see it or have understood or been told it has been. This particular creature is standing in a furrow with a band around its neck. It has it's a pastoral. He has rounded or circular teeth. Doesn't have fangs. Has a tremendous strength. Defined in over 75 verses from chapters 39, 40, and 41. As we get into chapter 40, it's defined as the behemoth, and many people will argue, scholars of the Bible will argue otherwise, but the behemoth in 40 is the same creature as defined in 39, which is a portal. God's telling Job there is one creature that is above all. And if you look at the mythology, the unicorn even swam, wasn't even on the ark. It wasn't part of that scenario.
Are you still with me? I think I lost my connection. Or did I lose my connection to him? Folks, if y'all can hear me in the chat room, please let me know. I think I've lost my guest. I'm looking for his number now. I should have had it on a document instead of in the email. Here it is right here. Give me just a minute and I'll get him back on the line. I don't know what happened on his end, but something went askew. Got to get rid of these little periods. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . .
Hello, we're back.
Yeah, I think we lost you for a minute there.
Was it on my end? I have a direct connection. I apologize. I made sure I went out and got this phone with a wire that connects to the wall and everything, so we didn't have any snafus there.
Well, I don't know how it happened, but as long as we got a break there, Deja Vu was wanting me to ask you what planet Inky and Enlil are from, and if they are headed back, in your opinion.
Zachariah Sitchin, the 12th planet, clearly identifies these individuals as coming from the 12th planet or the 12th member of our solar system. Given the fact that Earth is the number 7 in all signs, Earth has always been given the celestial number 7. And that can only be if we are coming in to the
from the outside, because we're counting from the sun.
Right. That's something that Zachariah Sitchin has taught us here. Are we back online, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, what we're looking at, is are these individuals from that planet X Nibiru? Most likely, is that planet due to make an orbit around our sun in its elliptical orbit? Are we going to see it at its perigee soon? Yes. Did the Mayans predict it? Yes. Did we get it wrong for 2012? Maybe. I don't know. I see 2012 as a turning point for me, and from my perspective, even though, I haven't exactly finished, the story as Job would have finished it, I consider myself very fortunate that I've progressed after all these years to a point where I've been tested by fire and now have understood the manifestations of this research and the gift that it has been to me, though I felt that my mission was to spread this information to a global population in order to provide a basis for understanding a new realm of comprehension. Columbus did this back in 1492. He gave a global population in Europe the understanding that there were aliens out there, and likewise the aliens, the indigenous people in the New World saw the explorers as the gods. Pizarro was misconstrued as Quetzalcoatl or Cortez as Quetzalcoatl and such. So, boy, these people get nasty on here, don't they? All right. So anyway, we're back on Xenolinguistics 103, and at this point, if you look at the unicorn petroglyph and the prominent figure that projects from the unicorn petroglyph. By the way, 10 out of 10 archaeologists would deny that this artifact was ever scribed, because the markings and the perturbations within the inside surface of this two-part petroglyph are what we're looking at here. There is, and in fact, it's a two-part codex. The first part, being the bottom stone, projects the prominent glyphic figure of the unicorn. And even though 9 or 10 out of 10 archaeologists would deny that this artifact was inscribed, 9 out of 10 people would identify this image as a unicorn projecting from this.
Okay, well, before you get involved in that, because I know it's going to be a little bit long, I thought I'd let you know we're due to hear the music interrupt us just any minute now, so you may want to not get involved in something that you're going to get interrupted on, in other words.
Okay.
But, folks, we will be returning as soon as break time's over, which we're not going anywhere until I hear the music start the actual break. I just didn't want to get anything too long. Have you got anything short you want to share real quick, like?
Sure. you want the cliff notes. You want,
no, I mean just something to fill time while we're waiting for break music.
Okay, well, I'm trying to zoom through it. I don't think we're going to get through the entire.
Well, there goes the break music now.
Okay, bye.
No, just hold the line. Just hold the line, and when the music ends, we'll start again.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassonde.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
He wants a challenge. Let's give him one.
The voice that whispers in your ears are the screams that you fear. The mind you cannot defy is the heart that rules mankind. The people who made you are the gods that will save you. I am Steve Travesty. I am the voice. The ghost in the machine. Ghost in the Machine, Tuesdays, 8 p.m., Studio A.
Right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And I guess we need to dive right into this, as the guest has indicated to me that we're running out of time to cover all the material. So, Les, you're still with me here, right?
Absolutely. Thanks
Wonderful.
again, Lloyd, for having me with you, and for providing me this time to explain this research, which I personally have dedicated the rest of my life to. One of those eureka moments when I discovered these artifacts on Christmas Day, 1994.
Now, I believe when we left off for break, we were still on the unicorn stone. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we were talking about the unicorn petroglyph. We were on Xenolinguistics 103, which can be found in the Xenolinguistics tutorial submenu at impactoptics.com, which is the website dedicated to all of this research. And again, I will restate that I am the only resource available on the internet that will define, explain, and translate photo engraved stone artifacts labeled petrophotoglyphs. There's nobody else out there doing it, and these artifacts were discovered by me, but actually they are not unique to humanity. These artifacts have been handed down. This is what Zechariah Sitchin would have called ancient knowledge lost.
Right. Now, before you go too much further, I'd like to take opportunity to mention to everybody that may not be aware of this, that you don't have a book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble that you're selling.
I'm selling
your website is your book, and it's free to all to read.
Absolutely. What Impact Optics is the culmination of my research. There are many articles I've posted online. I've been online 19 years with this research, so I can honestly say that there's a lot of stuff out there. Some of it's not so complimentary, but it's nevertheless I've been flamed from the get-go, but nobody has put out the fire. I've understood what this is from the get-go, and I've just embellished on that initial understanding, and it's been substantiated. For me, it's definite proof that we are a product, at least our infrastructure of sociological development, and from the messages I get, it's also biologic. So in other words, we were molded into our images by these people, and we were given our forte for society, our ethics, our laws, our rules, good and bad, whatever, by these people too, by these entities. I can't call them people. We're not second to one, but by any means. There's a layer of entities that provide support to the high gods of this so-called heaven or actual planet that might be out there. And we've come in contact with both the Nephilim and the Anunnaki who provide for them.
So we're still under their influence then?
we've been on our own, but the groundwork for our own specific religious beliefs, our own perspectives, our own social outlook is
kind of like men took what they wanted, that they left behind, and made what they wanted to out of it.
Well, we'll see as we go along here how it was necessary to coagulate humanity as it was. First there were all these beings that were designed and thrown out here on this earth, and they were propagating, and they needed some social structure, and it was the great sociologist Enlil who provided that. He sent emissaries to do that work, and we've identified those emissaries in religion and scripture, and how they and what those emissaries left behind were these communication platforms that were inscribed with their words, their images, these hologram images.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you hold on a second? You got a phone call coming in.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the air.
You're on the air.
Well, I answered that, and I heard myself.
I did too.
But it shows he's on the air, and he's not speaking. Area code 425, you're on the air.
We don't hear anything.
Yeah, we lost our connection with him somehow. I don't know how. All right, well, go ahead. If he calls back, I'll interrupt you again. Oh, I see how we lost him. I lost my connection. Are you still with me? Looks like I lost him too. All right. Let's do this again.
Hi. Can't take your call right now. Please leave a message.
Les, can you pick up the phone? I can always call him back if not. I accidentally lost you when that caller called in. I lost my connection to the internet, period. Well, he's not answering, so I guess I'm going to have to hang up and call back. Now, just bear with me on this one, folks.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, that was my fault. I've had a bad connection today because of the rain, I think. And when that caller called in, I lost my signal, and it dropped you and him both. Area code 405, if you're still out there listening, call back in, and I'll try to take your call again. Okay, so in the meantime, why don't we go ahead with where you're at, and if he calls in, I can interrupt you.
Do that, yeah. Okay. So essentially, we're looking at the 39, 40, and chapters 41 of the book of Job. In definition, line for line, word for word, we're defining this projection from this stone, a creature that has its tongue being pulled down from its mouth with a cord, being pierced through the jaw, wearing a crown on his head, a garment on his back with a double-handled bridle, pastoral giant. I mean, it's all there. It's a creature, and a creature of very specific stature, and in fact a portal in definition that was opened to Job in relation to identifying who and what he's been going through, a means of communication between the deity and the man. And as we scroll down in Xenolinguistics 103, we see a propagation from the stone with a juxtaposition or a position-specific change in that artifact, whereby this creature is actually emerging from a hand identified in perspective as a right hand, with a piercing through the palm. Very interesting indeed, as we understand the crucifixion is part of the New Testament. Job is part of the Old Testament. We see a connection here. We start seeing a relationship between what was, what is, what we have laid down, and it all it all ties in, and we'll see as that progresses in Xenolinguistics 104. I don't think we're going to get through the entire curriculum today, but we're moving into it.
Well, let's just see how far we can make it.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to come back and continue on at any point. As in anything, I guess we'll get through our freshman year today.
Well, also, let me mention everybody before I forget, a lot of you listeners out there have your own shows here on Revolution Radio Network. I'm pretty sure that Les here would be more than happy to come on to your shows as well. All you have to do is go to his website. He's got an email link there, or you can contact me, and I'm pretty sure it's okay with him if I give out his email address so you can contact him.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. So we look at Xenolinguistics 104, and at this point we're seeing, we're going to understand how these stone-scribed codex messages are further interpolated and defined in mythology and scripture. We saw in 103, it was defined in the book of Job, and in fact, if we look at the ancient, the very first writing that we understand humanity laid down, it was defined as cuneiform. For many years, these shards that were excavated by the archaeologists in the mid 19th century and early 20th century were stored in the basements of research institutes, only to be gathered after it was discovered that these artifacts, these shards of cylinders, seals, contained a language and an alphabet defined as cuneiform, or the stylus engravings or indentations in soft clay that was then hardened. With those also went a picture codices of these stories that were being told at the time, that were essentially all gathered together and defined as the Epic of Gilgamesh, King Gilgamesh being in mythology the demagogue who sought eternal life through his ventures. We see essentially that projecting from the stone and the cylinder seals and the image codices that are in the museums across the globe project similar images of these codices. One very specific one is of the tale of Zu, who stole the information from Enki, who then sent I think it was Marduk to bring them back. Anyway, the mythology is there, as in also the image of the ark and the story of Al-Trahasis. Details within these stones project temple structures, altar areas where there were sacrifices provided to the deity, and what we're understanding here is that one god in one civilization was named Zeus, and that same god in another civilization was named Osiris, and that same god in another civilization might have been named Abraham. So we see these individuals, these emissaries who walk through the civilizations of humanity. I'm going to just scoot on to Xenolinguistics 105 at this point, which allows us to see something very unique here, and that is a highly detailed descriptive element as to what the ark, the boat of salvation, actually looked like and what its purpose was. in Xenolinguistics 105, we see the detailed instruction set forth by an omniscient source. The story was initially defined as Al-Trahasis, given that the tale of Al-Trahasis, it was inscribed in the cuneiform and discovered and is sitting in some museum, defined as Enki, who spoke to the reed hut walls of Al-Trahasis, telling him to build this crescent-shaped vessel. That's all great, but I need a more detail. If it was me, I would need more detail than just go build a crescent-shaped vessel. And within this stone, we have both the image of Enki and the image of the ark. And within the details of the ark, we have an instruction set as to its size. We have an instruction set determining its
Okay, we got a call coming in. Let's try to hope we don't lose our connection again. Caller 505, you're on the air.
Hi, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Doing well. I just had a question for
Laser Les?
The gentleman.
Okay.
Yes. I'm curious if he has any information on Pegasus and other connections related to Pegasus. And then just basically, there's a ship here in New Mexico buried underground that relates to all this. And
I've read about that online. An extraterrestrial spacecraft is what I've heard.
Yes. Well, yes.
At least that's what they're saying it is.
Yeah, and this is actually... I'm sorry?
How does that tie in with Pegasus, the mythological flying horse?
The Pegasus is the ship. It's the ship that Thoth flew.
Okay. No, I haven't heard. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I haven't really heard that. Anything about the Pegasus. I can Google that. But
yeah, you won't really find anything online about it. I was just curious if you had any information on it. We have an exploration team here in New Mexico, and have located this ship. It's a very backdoor kind of operation, but I'll leave it at that for now. So by all means, feel free to continue your research. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Check that out.
Uh-huh.
Yep, good one. Okay, back to where we were at.
Right. Xenolinguistics 105, we're actually getting into the structure of the crescent-shaped vessel, which, using the translation or deciphering process, I developed bilateral symmetry, or folding out one side of the image onto itself, eliminating half of the information and doubling the other half of the information onto itself. We get to see a structure of this vessel with 3 levels defined in the book of Genesis 6, an opening at the top or window, and something that isn't defined in Genesis 6, which is a buoyancy counterbalance at the bottom. Logical and necessary to keep a structure of this size upright. As we get into further details using spectrum-specific image translation and bilateral symmetry and spatial-specific positioning, we get to see the image as defined in a cutout view. So we get to see the internal rooms, the internal structure, how it would be laid out in detail. As we defined earlier with micro-image subcodices, which were taken from this particular structure, which is the ark developing from the Genesis petroglyph being held by the prominent glyphic figure Enki, But on the deck of the Ark, we see the interaction between humans. We see the interaction between animals and humans, and we see humans being formed. I don't know, and essentially we get a message from these projections that what entered the Ark and what exited the Ark was not the same. In other words, the Ark was a biogenetic laboratory, most likely hermetically sealed in order to prevent, infiltration from the flood. But nevertheless, there was a laboratory thing going on there. And as we further see images propagate, it substantiates that totally. In the micro-image subcodices, we get to see the interface between man and a primate. We get to see the interface between man and a giraffe, or just a human face and a giraffe. And we'll see on the human two horns that eventually end up on the giraffe. So there was a system of development there. We see an individual that looks like a Venus figure, and we see an individual of a man being his torso, his upper torso, and then just to the right of that is his lower torso, his buttocks. So there's configuration going on the deck of the Ark based on the sub-codex microimage projections that are seen there. With that being said, we can go to Xenolinguistic 106.
106.
106, which gets into the methodology that's used to interpolate these stones that are curiously disguised, small hologram-inscribed artifacts that are called petrophotoglyphs. Dispersed on a global level, disguised so they wouldn't be hoarded, preventing their information projections from transmitting to future generations. Decipherable, but not obvious to somebody walking. Nevertheless, if you went to the proper location or went to the proper source, you can decipher these using spectrum-specific illumination, whether it be a cave with a fire illuminating the artifact inside a cave, or a scanned photograph in a computer. And there are three basic principles, variables that are used independent and in conjunction with each other in this research. The first is spectrum-specific illumination, or alteration of the visible light that is applied to the artifact, and the light that projects from that artifact. The second variable would be the dimensional perspective of that artifact with respect to the visual source, your eyes, the recording device, camera. And the third variable in developing these codices and deciphering these artifacts is bilateral symmetry, mirror imaging of the artifact in that perspective. And we'll see how that ties in. If we apply those principles to rock art, archaeological engravings, and we see in around us all over the world, there's rock art in France, in Australia. I lived in Arizona for many years, and it was right in my backyard. It's engraved in stones, and we think that it meant something to somebody, but we don't understand it. However, if you were to take one of these images inscribed on a stone wall or cave wall and use these principles, you get information projecting and a structure that further enhances the story, the codex. This one I used for an example is an individual that's leaning out with one hand and has an animal in the other. And if you use the process of bilateral symmetry, you see that in the spectrum development one, he's upset, he's frowning, he's crying, his inner spirit is reaching out. And in spectrum development number two, this individual, this glyphic structure on a wall is happy, smiling. The inner spirit is at peace. information that I received, that anybody can receive from this petroglyph, pictoglyph on a cave or on a mountain wall that clearly defines an image structure and a codex. Other artifacts that this technology was applied to was the Virgin. I haven't seen anybody else on the internet do this, which is light up the actual face of the Virgin, get her eyes to open and close, and move. I've done that using this technology, using spectrum-specific technology. Her eyes open, her eyes close, her eyes move. Dr. Tonsman, he developed microimage subcodices from within her eyes. That was his work. My work with the Virgin was to just light her up using spectrum-specific technology and getting her to open her eyes. Yeah.
Sorry, Les, but we got another question in the chat room. Mur Bailey is asking, is Pegasus the name of the ship near the moon many life forms are using to conference with us?
Pegasus. Again, I'm not familiar with that project or with that artifact. I do know that what I'm dealing with, the projections from a petrophotoglyph are a universal language. You don't have to have a particular language or cultural persuasion to understand these projections.
More symbolic.
It's a visual language. It transcends the boundaries of written and spoken language, which is a major stumbling block to humanity coming back together. This is a language of universal nature. Anybody of any persuasion can understand this.
I'm glad you answered it that way, because you took care of Deep Blue's question also.
Oh, okay. Well, we do the same thing. We sent out probes with glyphic structures. We didn't write in English or in Russian on these probes that we sent into space. We put a glyphic language, hoping that somebody would identify, a figure of a man, a figure of a woman, maybe, proximity of the Earth to the sun. These are descriptive visual elements that put information in somebody's mind, and information can be transmitted this way too. Road signs are that way. You don't have to have the word stop to see, to stop, or curve in the road or something like that. It's understood. Getting back to what we're doing here, using bilateral symmetry on the prominent glyphic figure of Enki, who holds the ark in that Ultra Hasis Codex or Genesis 6 Codex, we get to see that this individual aligns through a cross-hatch structure of lines within his body to the constellation Orion, very prominent constellation seen from both the southern and northern hemisphere, identified as a man from the get-go in the sky, and aligning perfectly with this prominent glyphic figure, and most specifically with the eye that projects from the prominent glyphic figure of Enki. Directly under his helmet is an eye that projects, and as we'll see later on, that eye aligns most directly with the constellation star Betelgeuse. The other stars most prominently identified in the constellation are all identified in that cross-hatch structure of inlaid lines in the stone. The prominent glyphic figure is excised or outward etched. That triad of lines that form the body of this figure come out from the stone, and the crosshatch of lines, linear markings that identify the constellation are inlaid within the figure. And except for the eye of Enki, but everything else lines up, all of the constellation stars. And just a side note, On the other side of the stone is the bull of heaven, Enlil's epithet, and embedded within that bull of heaven is the constellation of Taurus, complete with the red star Aldebaran and the Pleiades, and they're all identified. It's on the other side of the stone. It develops into the head of a bull, and again, that needs to be juxtapositioned or mirror image in order for that to align. So both the prominent glyphic image of the man on one side that aligns to Orion needs to be mirror image to align to the constellation Orion. The bull on the other side needs to be mirror image to align to the constellation Taurus, which are adjacent in the night sky. For me, here in the eastern United States, I'm right on the Gulf of Mexico. I look out at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and Orion is just right there, sitting upright, just like it is pictured in this development from the stone. And Taurus is just to his right, and Sirius is just to his left, the dog star. So with that being said, I think we're done with our freshman level class here, and we can go to Xenolinguistics 201.
Now we get into the hard stuff.
Well, this is sophomore stuff, so we're beginning to understand what we're dealing with here. Okay, hopefully, anybody that's still following along here, we're translating image structures that project in various ways from stone artifacts that were inscribed by an unknown, highly advanced ancient technology, and those image structures have been translated over the millennium to include what we understand as scripture and mythology, database of humanity. So Xenolinguistics 201 actually gets in a little bit further with the development from the unicorn petroglyph, and what we're talking about here is tethered avatars from the New World and the Old World. We'll see project from this stone. We begin by saying that this is a model for an absolute proof of functional xenolinguistics. Xeno being foreign or unknown, linguistics being language, just like petro being stone, photoglyph being a photographic inscription or inlay, etchings. Okay, so functional linguistics is what we're dealing with here. Propagation of a video hologram in an attempt to contact humanity and provide information. The platform being stone in this case. We understand that there is the potential for alien contact, and we've even developed a scale called the Kadarsha scale, where we quantify the level of energy usable by a civilization and perspective, and quantify and identify those individuals based on their ability to utilize that energy. We are barely touching the surface of being able to do any manipulation of energy and affect the weather. We do affect the weather tremendously, but we don't do it intentionally. I mean, our ozone layer being affected and various things were all unintentional, but we have never been able to directly affect it. I think I've heard of HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, a defensive weapon that uses the ionosphere to bend microwaves and create a death beam. I've heard of that, but I don't think that's really what we're talking about here. So we're barely touching the surface of what the individuals who forged these stones were capable of.
Or what their intention was, what they were trying to accomplish.
Well, I think they were trying to educate us. I don't think we're a mistake. I think we're if anything, we're an experiment, or somebody's hobby. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we're Enki's hobby. I don't know who exactly, what the master plan is, but it does seem that there is a logical progression of events, and there does seem to be some scientific proof as to how mythology and scripture became known to us, humanity, and became documented and transcribed and studied today. And there's many explanations. Okay, so in Xenolinguistics 201, we developed from the unicorn petroglyph two creatures, and the creature, the unicorn, we have gone through and identified that creature in its perspective with the mythology of the righteous sufferer, Lulildo Mimiki, and also we've identified that creature as the portal to the divine entity in the book of Job, in the final chapters there. However, tethered to that creature, the unicorn, is another creature that can further be identified as a New World avatar. So we have Old World, New World avatars and emissaries. So in this case, the divine entity sent avatars. And to Job, the avatar was a unicorn. To Mesoamerican civilization, that avatar was Quetzalcoatl. Many Mormon people, scholars, and not all of them, but many believe Quetzalcoatl was the manifestation of Jesus walking through the New World. But we see in this case tethered avatars, New World and Old World, very interesting, with perspective to the message that's being relayed here. And again, this artifact, the unicorn petroglyph, is a two-part artifact discovered in two pieces, about 20 feet apart, and the inside surfaces, when lit up properly, project the codex. That we're looking at the first stone, the bottom stone tablet, I call it, and the main iconic figure there is the unicorn. That was first identified. Later identified was Quetzalcoatl. I first thought there was, the battle between good and evil, and there were many things that came to my mind until I got to see the image of Quetzalcoatl as understood in Mesoamerica, and and say, oh, that's definitely Quetzalcoatl, as you can see I posted on the website. Again, as you juxtaposition the rock and take another image and start describing the perspective from the inside of the unicorn petroglyph, you see the right arm pierced through the arm, and then the message of the arm is clearly stating that there's a link between the Old Testament and the New Testament, between the Creator and Jesus. It's all tied in, and it's understood through the projections here in this message. If it was written in a universal language, I guess it'd be, written similarly as to what I'm trying to decipher here. And with that being said, I think we're good with 201. So let's go on to Xenolinguistics 202, which identifies these entities and avatars as transcending time and space. This is where we get into, was Horus Marduk, was Horus, Jesus in the old world, and was.
In other words, he could have well been Horus, Mithras, Zoroaster, Jesus, Tammuz, all of them.
Spreading the word of religion and language, unifying humanity towards a single persuasion. These avatars certainly did. Those artifacts certainly did. The Shroud of Turin came just in the nick of time, because we were in the midst of the medieval ages. It broke through, and lo and behold, we're in the Renaissance. We're enlightened. And it all came in the 14th century. There was discovery of, we were beginning to discover new lands, and art and everything was flourishing. The plagues were diminishing, and the Crusades and all that, that went on then. So these artifacts had a substantial influence on the course of humanity as contact continued between old world civilizations between themselves and ultimately to the new world. And then, as we saw in the last tutorial, the link between the unicorn old world and the avatar of the new world, Quetzalcoatl. So anyway, we're going to talk about time and space, and just a brief note that the application of photolithography is about as understandable as I can get with it, working in the field of microelectronics. Photolithography was prominently used to develop integrated circuits, lay down masks of various materials that interacted with each other and formed transistors, many multitudes of transistors and gates and things like that worked in order to provide us with our electronics and, our means of life today in terms of the internet, as good and as bad as it can be. So these artifacts were similarly put together with interconnected image masks that when properly illuminated, project as codices. We see from the Genesis petroglyphs a projection of an individual who, in one perspective, tells the story of the Ark, and in another perspective, tells the story of Orion and being shot with an arrow. There's an arrow that's defined within the body, aligned to the stars. Orion was shot by Artemis, his lover, because her brother Apollo tricked her and told her to do that, and he was forever cast into the sky according to mythology. A little further down the line, we see the entity is further defined as Horus and projecting from the eyes. And by the way, click on any of these images. I've tried to make things as large as possible. So if you get big screen, you get big images. I try to keep to a 300 dpi format with any of these images I post. But the eye that develops from the prominent glyphic figure is not altered in any perspective. It's only developed, enhanced to bring it out, the structure of the eye. And anatomically, it's correct. We'll get into that a little bit later on. There's a tutorial based on the eyes. But clearly a draconic feature to the morphology of the eye and the phenotype of the eye. It clearly doesn't look like yours and mine. It looks more reptilian. And there's many people who say that we came from a draconian lineage. I don't know. All I know is the eyes are pretty prominent and profound. Further down, we see that the individual in a development is wearing a mask with a pierced nose, based on the fact that he's wearing a strap-down helmet, Mesoamerican style Choctaw helmet. Now we see a mask. See two sets of lips. One of the individual wearing the mask underneath that with a beard, but the mask is a pierced nose. That is an essential Mayan ritual signifying ascension. We see these in the codices from Chichen Itza and from the Olmec and various other Mesoamerican archaeological sites. We see these codices, and it clearly symbolizes, that piercing of the nose is the road to omniscient thereafter. Just like the boat, traveling the underground river was for the Egyptian. I don't know. I'd rather take the boat ride than the nose ride, but it's kind of funny that I saw the other day this, and it looked so prophetic. But it was this primate that they discovered in China at this very high altitude, and they call it the snub-nosed macaque. But it has its nose looks pierced. There's no nose. It looks like the nose was cut right off. And if you look at the pyramid, the nose is cut off. There's something there with a pierced nose that we don't quite understand. Pekel too, the Mayan, the god who was buried in the sarcophagus that was deciphered by Maurice Cottrell using a similar technology that I use with bilateral symmetry. He used pattern juxtaposition in order to decipher the sarcophagus lid of Pekel too. But you can see further down in the Xenolinguistics 202 right now that the major glyphic figure from the Genesis petroglyph aligns to the sarcophagus lid, the figure who's been so duly placed on that sarcophagus lid that was interpreted as a spaceship by von Daniken and various others. I come from the school of Zachariah Sitchin, who was my mentor, and in fact I did meet him, had lunch with him in 1998 in Sedona. He was the keynote speaker, and I was so excited to see him and show him the Genesis petroglyph in particular, because it had definite ties to Enki, and he was the sophist that I read in understanding who Enki was, and the manifestations that were coming from the stone started to make perfect sense. And he held this stone for the entire period that we were, at lunch prior to his keynote speech, but he had never seen anything like. He'd seen everything in the world probably, but never seen anything like this, and just couldn't understand it.
Just thought I'd mention real quick. We got like 5, 6, 7 minutes left. If you want to, get anything out there before you run out of time. In other words.
Anybody wants to email me, I'll send you complete information. I'll send you a nice photograph of the stone, translated image, and I hope you have me back again at some point, because I can certainly fill up another 2 hours. It looks like we got through maybe half of our sophomore year here. I guess I thought I could get through the whole thing, but it took me a couple of years to put together these tutorials. But please, I invite anybody to read and comment and check out petrophotoglyphs and these developments and their manifestations on the internet. And I really appreciate you giving me my 15 minutes here again.
Royce, call it 15 minutes.
Well, according 15 minutes of fame, everybody gets theirs.
Yeah.
You've given me mine a few times, but yeah.
Well, I'll be more than happy to have you back. I've got a show coming up Sunday, but if you couldn't get through it on today's show, you couldn't do it on Sunday's show, because that's going to be a 1 hour show, and this is a 2 hour show, so you'd only have half the time.
Well, you know me, I'm a good stand-in. You get somebody cancel out, you got a 2 hour show, just because my research is there. I'm just reading off of the information that's posted and free. I can't very well sell God's word. The information I've gotten from these artifacts wouldn't do any good anyway. Nobody'd believe me. So it's out there. It's out there for free. The only thing I do is, if you, I sell, image propagations. I neatly place them on aluminum or a mylar, and I sell those to support the research. But it really doesn't do very much. I continue its full bore regardless, and I have been for the last 20 years, and will continue, hopefully for as many years as I have left, in order to get this information out there, because I know it has value, or will have value at some point.
Well, what's interesting to me about it is it's like a secondary confirmation testimony to some of the other material that was extracted off the Sumerian tablets and the Akkadian tablets and Babylonian tablets. You know, but these were found in America, but it's still a telling of the same basic story. In other words, kind of like confirmation.
Well, like the flood myth, you know, it didn't originate in Mesopotamia. It's global. There's over 150 civilizations throughout the millennia who have had a flood myth. I mean, there are certain bases to all religions and mythologies that have transcended humanity, you know, and have been carried along, and there means that there had to have been a method of transmitting this standard information, and here is a viable means, platform to do so. These artifacts could, you know, transmitted the same story to ancient Neolithic individuals as they have today, as I explained them today. The same story of Job, the same story of the flood. You know, I never realized how important these iconic figures were, but you know, they are truly significant, and you can boil down, you know, our basis of knowledge to these, you know, just a few stories, a few facts, a few figures, you know, and then from that it's all embellished.
Well, as you know, Les, I've done study in this here particular field of the ancient astronauts for many, many years now, and I don't care how anybody else cuts the mustard or what they want to say. Whoever these gods, ancient astronauts, fallen angels, whatever you want to call them were, they definitely had a strong influence on shaping the world we live in today.
Absolutely.
I mean, call them what you like. The end product was still the same, in other words.
Oh, yeah. You know, are these words, you know, from Enki and Leo? I think so. Or their scribes, you know. But most definitely, there's meaning and there's purpose and there's structure to these hologram projections that come from these stones, and they're not just random, and they're not scaring me. They haven't scared me, really. They've intrigued me and to further, you know, investigation, and I just can't put them down. It's like a book that I haven't been able to finish for the past 20 years. That's what's happening there. I truly invite anybody to investigate any or all of my work, comment on any or all of my work that's been posted.
You invite them to debate you on your work as well?
What's that?
Do you invite debates?
Oh, I've had many debates, and you know, I find very few people who can understand, you know, manifestations of this nature. But
well, it looks like we just got our cue from the server, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you like that, but the music was fixing to anyway. Les, it's been a pleasure as always. And
Likewise, it's been a pleasure to converse with you again.
I plan to have you back again in the near future. I hope that I'm going to be in touch.
Okay, we'll put a bookmark here and continue on from that point, okay?
Okay, and folks, y'all have a good day, and hopefully I'll be on Sunday if I'm not back in the hospital again. I'm waiting to see how I'm going to do. We'll talk, and not here I won't. I'll be on at Supernatural Live that time. So hopefully we'll see you over there then. Talk to you later.
Take care, Roy. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, your lives are becoming more difficult as the life force of your world is draining away. Have you noticed that as everything around you seems to decline, one thing still grows? It is the power of your rulers. None of their plans and directives have solved your problems or made your life better. The only result has been their increased control over you at the cost of your freedom. Do you know why? You gave them the power. They called for your sacrifice, and you thought it was noble. They said if you worked for yourself and your family, that you were selfish and uncaring, and they made you feel ashamed. They denounced the leaders of industry as greedy exploiters. You agreed. All evil